Hey, Ken. How you doing, Ken?
Hey John, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. You have a good weekend?
Yeah, how about you?
Oh, it was touchy.
Uh-oh.
I swallowed a piece of chicken wrong, and it was lodged in my esophagus. And for about 3 hours, I was debating whether to make the trip to the emergency room or not, because it's happened to me a couple times in the past. Once while I was at Full Sail back in 2008 or 2009 on Memorial Day. I remember this because it was a hot dog. I took a bite of hot dog and it squirted out of the bun and right down my throat.
Oh no.
And so it's a quick trip to the emergency room. They triage you relatively fast. And then the protocol is they give you a IV to try and loosen everything up. And if that doesn't work, then they send you upstairs for some minor surgery to knock it out. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good
How you
thing.
doing, Gilbert? Good to see you.
Good to see y'all. I clocked out so I can join y'all.
That's
Oh,
excellent.
wonderful.
If something immediate comes up, and I'll let y'all know that I have to go. It should be okay for now.
Okay.
I like your painting in the back.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my office is Van Gogh themed. So I
Excellent.
have Van Gogh.
Awesome. Have you ever been to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam?
No, I wish. The closest I got to was the Chicago Art Institute,
Uh-huh.
and I saw a couple of his paintings there. So
Oh yeah. Well, if you ever get to go to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, you have to go. It's a must see. We went last June actually, and that was probably one of the highlights of the trip for me. I loved it. It was fantastic.
nice.
The way that the museum is set up, when you go in, um, you actually go down to the basement level, and then as you go up to the museum, the various floors of the museum,
Mhm.
it progresses through the history of his life, and you see all the different periods of his life, and they describe it really well.
Well, that sounds cool. One day.
Yeah. Save up your money to do it.
For real.
Plus,
Yeah.
Amsterdam is a fun city. It's just, there's a lot to do there and a lot to see. And the coffee shops aren't bad either.
Nice.
So, let's see. So, John, did you want to get started, or?
Yeah, I thought I'd
Wait
wait
a
just
couple-
another moment or so, see if we get anybody else.
Okay. Okay. So, how did week one go for you, Gilbert?
That was pretty cool. I work mostly with social media stuff, so I was able to, transition easier.
Okay.
So-
Yeah. I mean,
so-
you understood a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, this week you'll probably enjoy this week because we'll be talking about uh, customer interactions and how to deal with like public relations type issues, like
Cool.
an angry customer, or maybe someone who is like a super fan of your brand. They're very
Mhm.
loyal to what you do and the products that you put out there, and but something that you did kind of upsets them, and so they respond to you, and they typically will do it in a social media setting or somewhere online, like in a blog or a
Mhm.
forum or something like that.
Cool.
And
I did the discussion post already.
Oh,
Pretty
okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and then the assignments. I'm trying to. Oh, my dog is jumping in my lap. She's trying to pull the earbuds out of my ears. She thinks that, and now she's licking my keyboard. Her name is Joy. Can you tell why?
Yeah, she's so happy.
What kind of dog is she?
She's a Springer Spaniel.
Very cool.
Nice.
How many
Yeah.
pounds?
How many pounds is Joy now? About 37 pounds.
That's a good size. I like that weight.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well,
Yes. Oh.
so Gilbert, it looks like you're outnumbered today.
That's all good.
We're ganging up on you.
There's more direction for me, so it's all good.
No, that's great. And the more interaction that you have with us, the better too. I mean,
Yeah.
you can customize this to whatever your needs are. That what Ken was talking about, and the focus of the discussion is really rooted in understanding the nature of social media, and I'll get to that in just a second. But what I want to start with is talking about where we are right now, and
Sure.
what we're going to work on this week in terms of the assignment, because the assignment component. Well, let me step back for a moment and say, you've probably figured this out from your other classes, that the assignment component of your track is very project based. So it gives you the application to take away. You're able to say, hey, I did this, I made this happen. Whereas on the discussion side, the discussion side is where the critical thinking takes place, and it's where you begin to understand the concepts, the ideas. I'll go back to my differentiation between undergrad and graduate. In an undergraduate program, you're totally focused on making the meatloaf. How do I make this meatloaf? What are the ingredients that I got to put in? Get the measuring cups out and everything, and make sure that I'm following the recipe to the nth degree. In a master's program, we're kind of figuring you've got most of what you need in order to make a meatloaf. We're going to be concerned with what do you do with it now that you made it,
Oh, cool. Okay.
and how do you think about it? So, for example, in this course, we're not teaching you how to do social media ads. We're not teaching you how to build an ad campaign on Facebook. We're not teaching you how to build a campaign on LinkedIn, which is a great platform for ads, by the way. But we're not going there. We're not even going to Twitter, and nobody wants to put an ad on Twitter.
Oh yeah, no.
So what we want to talk about in this class is kind of what is the essence of social media, and how does it work, and then what we end up talking about is how do you really make that happen with what you can control. And so the discussions are really where you get into the critical thinking. And what you'll find at a master's level is there's really no wrong answer, because even if it's wrong, it's probably worth considering. Okay. What can you learn from your mistakes is another way to think about it. But really, the idea is, how much due diligence are you putting into the critical thinking? So to tie that back to social media directly, Facebook and Twitter and any place where we can microblog and express ourselves are usually very emotionally driven, and they're more about what I'm thinking at the top of my mind, right? It's impulse and whatnot. An academic discussion is about critical thinking and doing exactly the opposite of what we're doing in this moment right now. So in a classroom, we get to ask you a question and you get to respond. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Everybody's all, well, I was going to say bright and smiley, but if you're feeling like me, I still am 2 or 3 cups of coffee down. So at any rate, we're talking about just some generalities with regard to your master's curriculum and program. But so when we have a conversation like we're having right now, you kind of have to respond almost immediately. Whereas in a academic online discussion, you've got the opportunity to think, to measure, to evaluate what you want to say, and then respond with an informed opinion, not just an opinion, but an informed opinion from the research that you've done, because that's the expectation. When you earn the master's designation in terms of your degree, what it's really saying is you know how to master a topic, you know how to master a subject by diving deep and getting the research and coming back. So this week, in terms of what we're doing as it relates to our project in new media marketing, week 1, you went out there and you really, from a discussion standpoint, did a broad survey and were able to take a look at a number of different topics and then think about how it relates to new media marketing. Then from the project standpoint, what you did is 2, 3 very important things. I froze. There we go. The first is that you started to develop personas and to understand out of your target market, who is it that you really want to talk to? What do they look like as a person? What are their, what are their demographics? What are their behaviors or beliefs? These are all the things that come together in order for us to tap into the magic of digital marketing, which is the ability to talk one-to-one through all our channels and activities and strategies that we can deploy. Versus in traditional marketing, it's me talking to my entire target market. I can't get that one-to-one type of communication. So you develop the personas, you develop 3: customer, fan, and an influencer. We're going to talk today about number 2 and 3. And the reason we have you do all 3 in week 1 is because you really can't talk about number 2. This is going to sound horrible. Forgive me. Please forgive me. You can't talk about number 2 without understanding number 1. So that's the focus of your project work this week, is taking those personas and then now we're going to do something with them. The other 2 things that you discussed was understanding your goals, macro goals, micro goals, and then choosing a strategy, whether it's going to be an influencer strategy or a brand strategy. And with the understanding that an ambassador strategy is one that goes on for an extended period of time, because you're tapping into your fan base, and your fan base, they're crazy in love with you. Versus an influencer who is somebody that's very good at communicating through digital marketing channels, such as blogs and microblogs, and we want to tap into them on a short-term basis for a particular campaign. For example, they're not going to have, their brand is maybe similar to us. It aligns with what we want to do, but we're nobody to them, and we will never be really anybody to them. So it's a passing relationship. We want to make it beneficial for both of us during that time frame, but no, it's limited. And so with that basis, now the reality is, once you're out and practicing all this, what do you think? Do you think that you'll just ever run brand ambassador programs, or will you just run influencer campaigns? What do you think the options are.
I think it'd be a little bit hard for mine, since we're a college, and that's my case study company, is the college I work for.
Right.
I would think the brand ambassador would be a little bit better than the influencer.
Okay, so one
I
for
think
brand,
that's-
one for brand ambassador.
Mhm.
Any other votes?
Mine is for influencer.
One
By
for
me being-
influencer.
By me being in the real estate, you gotta influence more people to want to be a part of our services and our products.
So, but remember again, influencer is a limited time span. It's around a
Right.
particular campaign. So you're saying you may have pushes where maybe on a particular house or a particular property, you want to build a campaign around that.
Correct.
And use influencer. Very good. Very
Right.
good.
And then once it's sold, the campaign is over, it's time to go to another one.
Very good. All right, Sherry, it's 1-1. What are you going to say?
Well, I was thinking for mine, it's a retail company. It's an online retail company, and it has about 5 brick and mortar stores. So I was thinking the influencer, but now you're saying, this is more of like a short-term thing. So I'm not sure. Maybe a fan would be better. What are your thoughts?
Well, Sherry, what about if you were to consider a little bit of both, a little bit of the influencer and a little bit of the brand ambassador? Maybe for the sake of the assignment, choose one so that way it doesn't complicate your life. But in real life, maybe include, like say you go with the brand ambassador program, maybe also include a little bit of the influencer marketing idea or concept.
Okay.
Those people that don't necessarily, I hate to use the word not like, but they don't necessarily like your brand, but they align with it because the way that they speak online, whether it be in social media, blogs, forums, chats, etc., all aligns with your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So you like them for what they have to offer,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe go with them for the short term type of influence to get the outreach, but the brand ambassador for the long term.
Okay.
So the people who actually really and truly love your online brand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well said, Ken. And Ken's like inside my mind. So that was like a tag team right there, because the answer really is that you want to do both. Particularly if you got a campaign running, you're always going to have campaigns running. So the fact that we're asking you to pick one or the other is a little bit misleading, because in reality you're going to do both, and you're going to see how they're both very related as we continue to move through the program. So, excuse me. See that? I switched from coffee to Pepsi, and I can keep up with my children in one particular category when I'm drinking Pepsi. And I'm not going to tell you what that category is. At any rate, this last week you chose a strategy. Now, the interesting thing is, in order to get to the fan, so that you can build a brand ambassador program, you have to understand who your customer is, because your fan is your customer on crack. And that's good. We want that kind of energy. We want that kind of excitement. I think I have the link either in week 2 or week 3 material, but there's a video of this lady. She's in, I don't know, Arkansas or Oklahoma or maybe Nebraska, but she's out in the middle of nowhere. flyover country. You're not anybody. Not I didn't just insult anybody from Arkansas, Nebraska, or Oklahoma, did I?
Nah.
And it wasn't meant as an insult. It was just meant that very isolated. And In-N-Out Burger opened up a restaurant in her town, and she was from the West Coast, and evidently, unbeknownst to her family, to if she was married, her husband, to her boyfriend, she had been having an affair with In-N-Out Burger. And when they came to that town, she just erupted. It was the emotion. She was crying. She was so excited that In-N-Out Burger was there, and she couldn't wait to tell everybody. And when you look at that and you say, that's my fan. That's who I want. Now, your job as a new media marketing manager would be to start to think, how do I make that fan, that ambassador, productive? How do I make them? Because what you really want to do is you want to take that brand ambassador and start to develop them, if they're not already, into what you would consider an influencer, an internet influencer. But you're creating the entity to your brand. So what happens? We do all that legwork in week one, and now we've got to go put our money where our mouth is. We've got to go find people that we want to recruit.
Okay.
All right. This never leaves this Zoom room. What happens in this Zoom room stays in this Zoom room. Okay? What we're really teaching you to be is internet stalkers. Because you're going to come back at the end of this week with real people that you found and you identified out on the web. What you're going to do is you're going to start to look at your company's social media channels and look at who's engaging. And if you don't have enough engagement, where would the next place you would go to look? Your competitors. And see who's engaging on their social media channels. Because if you find somebody, and you've got very strict criteria, right? What's the strict criteria that you have to go find people? The personas that you developed. So that persona, call it a shopping list, call it a template. It is your benchmark that you then go and look and say, okay, I see this person. Let me do some research on them. Do I think they meet what I wrote down here on my persona? And if they do, then that's going to be somebody that you would want to put in a file to say, okay, this is somebody that we could possibly approach, whether it's the ambassador or the influencer. And then you want to get 2 or 3 lined up. In reality, you probably have a couple more than that, because in reality, you're going to have people that say no. So then you'd want to go to the next in line and so forth. But the bare minimum you want to start with is 2 or 3. And that's what you do this week. Now, why 2 or 3? Well, because you're going to have fans, you're going to have personas that some are going to maybe spend more time on a Facebook channel. You may have some that spend more time reading blogs. You may have some that they're just pure Instagram. I have an author friend, and I don't think I've seen her on Facebook in 3 or 4 years. But if I go on Instagram, she is all over Instagram. I have another friend that's the wife of a president major university, and both the president and his wife, they don't go on Facebook at all. They only live on Instagram. But oh my gosh, his wife's Instagram followers are like off the charts. So if I were to approach her as a influencer, I would know that I'm only going to hit the Instagram channel. So why do I want 3? Well, maybe I have somebody that's really good at blogging that's going to take care of my blogging segment. Maybe I've got somebody very good at Facebook. They're going to take care of the Facebook folks, and somebody in Instagram. Very seldom do you have somebody that's good at all 3 and does all 3 on a consistent basis. Most people are proficient and comfortable in one over the other. For example, where do you all spend most of your time on social media?
I'm Facebook.
I'm Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, I do Facebook and Instagram as well.
Okay. But if you had, for doing Facebook and Instagram, is there one more than the other?
Facebook for memes. Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly get that. Ken, where do you spend your time?
Oh, let's see. Probably a combination of Instagram and Twitter. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, and it's probably because there's been too many issues surrounding Facebook, and whenever they do update on Facebook, or if you change something on Facebook, it alters your security preferences, and that's a huge issue for me. And I especially because I'm, as a teacher, you have to think about who your audience is. Is your audience just a everyday type person, or is your audience someone who does something at a highly professional level where security is important to them? And in my instance, to me, security and privacy is very important because of what I do. And so because I had the lack of control that I have over my Facebook security, I try to avoid it as much as possible.
And I'm exactly the opposite. I am pretty much an open book. You have to be a friend. So I do, every time Facebook does something weird, I'm jumping into my security preferences. You have to be a friend, but I'm pretty much an open book. Once you're, who was it? It was Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents, where he goes, "Are you in my circle?" If you're in my circle, we're good. So that's what we want to do, is we want to go looking for these people that meet the criteria that we've identified, and we're going to name names. So if you come back at the end of the week and you just say, "Oh, person A is going to be somebody that does blah blah blah," that doesn't count. You need to name the name. As a matter of fact, give me just a second. And I should have had this queued up, and I was working on something else, so I apologize. Gosh darn it. There we go. Having to reload the page, which I always love. Ken, I got a Full Sail time bomb. You'll know what that is.
Oh, yes, I do.
Let's see.
It usually means a server crashed somewhere. So, did you get that in FSO?
Yeah, but I'm going to an alternate source, so I'm going to be good here in just a second.
Okay. Well, my FSO is working on my end, so it's not that. But
So what I'm going to do, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, as you're searching and looking there, there were a couple of things I was going to mention, if that's okay.
If you want to go ahead, I'm about to switch. I've got what I want, but go ahead. Why don't you take over for a moment?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, especially with the brand ambassador program, is think about the platforms like John was saying that the brand ambassadors are on and why they actually use them, and consider that question or that statement deeply, because everybody has a particular reason for using a certain platform. For example, if someone really gravitates to Instagram, it may or may not be just the fact that, oh, they like to post photos. It may be because, well, they're trying to sell products on Instagram. So they're using it and they're tagging their products with a link to their website so you can purchase them. Or maybe someone is using Facebook, and the reason why is because Facebook has the Facebook Live feature. Like I have a friend, she lives out in Wichita, Kansas, and every night she does a Facebook Live with her audience. She's a newscaster. And so that's why she chooses the Facebook Live platform for some of the things that she does. And another reason why is because the people who are actually going to watch what she has to say and what she has to present in Facebook Live are also on the Facebook Live platform. So it kind of goes even a step further. The fact that the people that pay attention to her are on Facebook. So it's twofold. So it could be that. It could be maybe even something like the age group. For instance, I have friends that are in their 20s and 30s, and they absolutely love Instagram, but they hate Twitter and they hate Facebook. They think that those platforms are for old people, you know, old people like me, you know. So just some more thoughts to be.
Your hair is still red. Mine, the only red I have left is my beard, Ken. My mustache. Very good.
Right, but that's all that I was going to mention.
Cool. Well, let's talk. This is the grading rubric for week 2, and it's broken down into the document. Let me just reiterate a few words with regard to document. First, if you're not familiar with 2 authors, Gar Reynolds or Nancy Duarte, please get a hold of their books. They're excellent source material for someone that needs to be a great communicator. And today, communication, business communication, is with regard to slides. When I worked at Disney once a month, we did our own kind of internal project every month we were responsible for. And at the end of the month, we had a report out. One of our monthly meeting days was a report out day where we had to give a presentation to 3 or 4 senior executives. And we were not only graded on what we researched, but we were graded on how we presented in terms of the slide deck and the content and so forth. So it's very, very important. And that was our own internal program, because on a regular basis, I was making presentations to executive vice presidents, to presidents of divisions and so forth. And so they wanted us to be extremely sharp with our communication skills. Gar Reynolds, just to give you a little bit of background, Gar Reynolds takes his book is called Presentation Zen. So he takes a very Asian approach to how to think about space and the ability to really control how much space you're using and how much effect you can get for the amount of space that you do use. And a lot of his book is focused on presenting data and concepts around data. So an excellent book to dive into. Nancy Duarte gets a lot more into the mechanics. Did any of you ever see An Inconvenient Truth? Al Gore's movie?
Yeah.
All the slides that were used in that movie were made by Nancy Duarte. She is absolutely recognized as the master in terms of overall slide design. Actually, her and Gar Reynolds are very good friends. If you search the YouTube, if you search the tube, you'll find a couple of videos where they're both in it together. At any rate, we say presentation or the document layout is 5%. Two things to keep in mind. One, don't just load us down with text. In the old day, when Ken and I went to school, we were taught on, I think, Ken, you probably remember the Covey Style Guide. And the Covey Style Guide, the answer to how you design a slide was you could have 6 bullets on a slide, and each of those bullets could have 6 words. So in essence, you were limited to 36 words. Today, it's much less than that. But those are guidelines. If you have to have a slide that has a lot of text, you have to have a slide that has a lot of text. Limit it as much as you can. And in my mind, I always go back to that old Covey Style Guide that there's no way on earth I'm ever going to put more than 36 words on a slide. It's going to be no more than 6 by 6 bullets. But again, keep it as minimal as possible. Use good, high quality graphics and models, designs that you create in Keynote to help convey your message. You don't want to have just pictures, because if I'm looking at that or Ken's looking at that and the audio doesn't play, or you didn't include speaker notes, we're lost. All we see are a bunch of pretty pictures. You've got to have some words on your slide to convey the main meaning behind the slide. And I'll come back one more time to more words. If you are using more words, when you present, if you do present, don't read your slide. What you want to do is, as you prepare, look at what you've got on the slide. And this holds true even if you have a picture and a sentence. You don't want to read the sentence. Look at the slide and say to yourself, what's the meaning behind this slide and what do I want to convey? And then when you present it, you say to your audience, what I want you to know about this particular slide is X. And then say what it is. And that's the way that you create a great presentation. Ken, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I just typed in the chat window. There's this website called Unsplash, and I shared the link with everybody. And feel free to use images from Unsplash. It's a website that is specifically built for people who produce high quality images and very just excellent to use for presentations. And all you have to do when you download the image for use is just copy and paste there's like a small little bit of text, and it'll say created by so-and-so on unsplash.com. And I actually used Unsplash. I've submitted several images to this particular website, and I really like it. I use it all the time, and it's super simple.
And let me add on to that, because that's a great resource. Every once in a while, you're going to find yourself in a jam where you can't find a royalty-free or a Creative Commons. You all know what Creative Commons is, right?
Mhm.
It's licensing that basically allows you to use other people's work. You can't find the image that captures what you want, but you've got an idea. The greatest tool on the planet. So if you have an idea, you can, or let's say you saw something that you want, but it's on iStock and you're going to have to spend $25, $30 to get the image. Recreate it. Obviously, you're not going to create the exact same thing, but the idea that it represents, you can recreate and just take the picture. I'm always, my family thinks I'm weird because wherever we are, I'll be looking at landscapes and close-ups, and I'll be thinking to myself, this is going to make a great slide background. And so I'm constantly adding pictures to my library of available backgrounds, and then also concepts. If I see something that I think might represent a great concept, I'll take that picture as well. So keep that in the back of your mind. Excellent. All right, so the next part of this rubric is to identify your influencer or your brand ambassador. So 25%, and that's, you got to get the names. You want to identify specific. It says right there, identify specific influencers to target. So and you want to, as you identify them, you're going to make sure that you have not all Instagram, not all Facebook, whatnot. And then the next two sections, each worth 20 points each, explain your selection, why you chose them, and then talk about how they fit into your overall plan, and how you're going to utilize that individual. And then talk about how you identify them. What were the metrics that you used? How did you determine that this was the person? Now, I'm a very, you all know what the word pedantic means? Very, very straightforward, very basic, very elementary. When I was a master's student and I would see something like this, it's exactly how I would design my presentation. I'd have a slide heading that would say influencers. I'd have another slide that would say explanation of my selection. I'd have another slide that says why they fit, and then another slide to say how I'd identify them. And those would be my headers. I would want to make it, since whoever designed this course thought those were important categories, I'd want to make sure that what I gave back to them was exactly what they were looking for, and so that there was no confusion. And think about that from a general marketer's perspective. Think about it from Google's perspective. Google ranks a page on a number of factors, and one of them is really based on whether so if I do a Google search and I see some keywords and then I go to the page, if I bounce off the page very quickly, Google says the content on that page didn't represent what was in the Google search parameter. And so they're going to give that page a much lower score. That's what you're really doing here. You're making sure that there's no bounce rate on the part of the professor. Okay? When you put information up, you want to draw the line directly. Nothing aggravates me more as a consumer when I click on a link where I think I'm going to lacrosse racket and I end up on baseball bats, right? So make sure that you're extremely explicit and direct with what you're communicating. Last thing, use Grammarly or some form of grammar and spelling checker to make sure that you're communicating properly, and make sure that you're taking the content from Matt Collier's Think Like a Rock Star and incorporating it into your presentation. If we don't see any Matt Collier references, what that tells us two things, because we probably already know that from what you put in the presentation, but also it tells us that directly that you didn't use the book. because we don't see it in the references. So you may be close, but you're not going to be right on. You got to use the content that's in Collier's book. Ken, your turn. Anything you want to add there?
Let me think. No, I don't think so. I think you covered everything that I was in my head.
I'm just gonna introduce this next section, then I'll tee it off to you. It's what you started to talk about in the beginning.
Okay.
So let's talk about the overall strategy of new media. And there's a couple items I'll hit real quick. One is that the essence of new media is all about a concept called social proof. Can anybody tell me what social proof is? Gilbert, I'm starting to see steam come out of those ears.
Not really sure.
Social proof just means that when somebody else other than the website owner or whoever relates their experience, tells you their opinion, that is much better evidence about how valuable something is than if I'm Disney and I say, hey, Disney's great. Well, of course I'm going to say Disney's great. But if Ken says, I had the best experience ever at the Magic Kingdom, and I'm a friend of Ken's, I'm listening to what Ken said because that's so much more important to me. Think about when you go to buy something, how often do you ask if any of your friends have bought something, or you see that your friend bought something and you say, how's that working for you? That looks really cool. That's social proof. It translates to, on the web, 3 outcomes.
So it's like word of mouth, right?
Yeah, very much.
Word of mouth.
Reviews, ratings, and recommendations, the 3 R's. The other thing I want to just mention is the nature of social media in general. And it's really built on 4 pillars. The 2 C's and the 2 E's. Communication. What are we communicating about? And why are we communicating? And ultimately, keep in mind that if we're just communicating for the sake of communicating, we might as well just be you and me on social media. We're trying to move people through a funnel, ultimately to a conversion. So keep that in mind with regard to the communication. But another pillar of social media is collaboration. And that kind of goes back to the essence of that social proof. We're collaborating and we're building ideas and sharing ideas and creating a community. So collaboration is critical. Also, the nature of social media is to educate. It's to help provide information to people so that they can move through the funnel. So it's part of that communication that we're providing is education. And then the last E, the other E, is entertainment. Why? Because when we're being entertained, we're happy, we like what we're hearing, we like what we're seeing, we stay engaged longer, and the entertainment is actually helping, again, part of that communication moving through the funnel. Have any of you ever seen the YouTube videos? And I'm forgetting the exact name, but it's Can You Blend It? Or I Can Blend It. And it's a manufacturer for a vendor, for a blender. But what they do, these YouTube videos, they'll blend anything. iPhone, can we blend it? Puts an iPhone in the blender and turns it on. Sneaker, can I blend a sneaker? They'll put a sneaker in and blend it. And what they're doing is selling the power of the blender, obviously. But think of the viral, it's kind of like, what was that comedian that used to smash everything?
Yeah.
Gallagher.
I can see it's, yeah, Gallagher.
Gallagher. It's kind of like going to a Gallagher concert to see Gallagher smash fruit. You go to that particular YouTube channel to see see them blend stuff up. And the marketer, he'll tell you right away, the more views I get, the more blenders I sell. But it's entertaining, kind of sick entertaining, if you ask me. I'm thinking, how much did that iPhone cost? But again, it works and very effective. So 4 pillars: communication, collaboration, entertainment, and education. And with that, that'll kind of take us back to where Ken was talking earlier, which is about feedback, the collaboration of feedback that we get from a user or a guest where they've had a bad experience. Take it away, Ken.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was talking about it was part of our discussion for this week, and we're talking about like when a customer or even someone who might be a fan of our brand is angry about something, or they're very passionate about something, and they mention it or share it on social media. How do we respond to that, and what is the appropriate way to make these types of responses? And I think it's important for us to first identify who the person is. Is the person really just a customer? Like, for instance, someone who bought a product or a service from you and they're not going to return, and you're probably, and your initial or knee-jerk reaction might be, well, you know, they're not going to return, so why should I even help them? But that's really not a good approach. You know, you still want to help that angry customer, someone who is not loyal to your brand, and help them solve their particular problem. And it may even be if they purchased a product or service from you, replacing whatever that product or service was. So that way they feel good about it and they walk away without creating more of a ruckus online. Because the first thing that they're going to do, if you don't, is they're going to create more of a ruckus online. So we need to be aware that that potential is out there. And then we always have those passionate people, the people who who really love our brand. For example, I love the Apple brand. I think that they make a great product. I love the fact that they are not first to market usually with things. And the reason why is because they're actually putting thought into it. I would rather someone take their time and figure something out than to rush and provide me with just a pile of manure. You know, that's not what I want. I have higher standards than that. And so as a passionate Apple fan, if I were to respond to maybe a new operating system that they released online, and I'm not happy with it because the operating system no longer allows me, this actually happened. I upgraded my operating system on my iMac at home, and I use my iMac as a second monitor for my laptop. Well, once I upgraded to the new operating system, I can no longer use my iMac as a second monitor. And I'm like, why? So I've been troubleshooting this and it's driving me insane. I've been dealing with this for over a week, but I don't have hours and hours and hours of time on my hands to try to solve this problem. And I'm on the verge of going online and start asking questions to people, you know, what's going on? And I expect it to be resolved if it gets to that point. So if Apple weren't responsive to it, I would get even angrier, and it might turn me away from their brand, so to speak. So we have to be aware that when we do have a loyal customer and they encounter a problem, and you know that they're going to return to your brand, that that you really need to take the time and energy to make the effort to help them. And then also with the discussion, I think that we will be talking about trolls as well, because there are people who go online and their sole focus is to create problems. There's no other reason behind them making comments to something or complaining about something, but just for the sake of doing it, because that's what makes them happy. And the more of a problem they can create, the better off, or the better that they feel about it. And so we have to be aware of what category the person falls into before we respond. Trolls, for example, we probably wouldn't ever engage with a troll. That's just, you're wasting your time and energy. And you're just going to get frustrated. So you may as well identify that the person's a troll pretty quick, and just cease communication with them. Usually they'll just move on and create a problem elsewhere because they get bored. And that's just the nature of someone who is an online troll. I think that's about all that I had, John, that I was going to mention.
No,
Can I add
that's-
something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you identify if it's a troll or not, at that point, do you delete the comment or do you leave it, or?
Well, what I would do, if you have the power to delete the comment that they post out there, I would take it down. Obviously, if, for instance, if I'm out there looking at a business, I want to hire them to put a new roof on my house, and I'm in the midst of looking for someone to do this work, I'm looking at reviews and I'm looking at their ratings, right? So as I'm doing this, if I saw that someone had a rating of 5 stars and say 150 reviews and everything is perfect and there was no comments about an issue that someone had or anything, I probably would be very suspicious. I'd be like, that person's going out and they're removing all these comments. So you have to be really careful about removing comments. Just because you don't like a comment that someone makes, it doesn't, I think that it ultimately hurts your brand in the long run. If you don't engage with the person and say, oh, I'm really sorry that this happened, how can I fix it? And then remembering to follow through with that person to make sure that they were satisfied, and then ask them, and it's completely appropriate to ask the person, hey, could you post another comment out there, or in addition to the one that you wrote, saying that we followed up with you and that we resolved the issue. And you can be honest and say whether or not you would use our company again, but at least you're getting real information. You're not allowing information to exist out there about your company that just because you want it to be that way, you know?
I just sent you all a link that it is a talk, and the example is Nestle. And the talk is about success and failure with social media. And it's a riot in one sense, but in the other sense, great lessons to learn. And again, dealing with trolls is very difficult because the challenge is that you want to be seen as transparent. Your organization wants to be seen as transparent. It's like the one of the number one values that the net generation places on organizations is their ability to be transparent. So when you delete comments, or if you delete individuals, it's very possible that your community of participants recognizes it and and looks at it as an attempt to be all big brother. So again, removing should be the very, very last result. One of the easiest ways is to take the argument away. When there was a period of time where I was running all the service merchandise locations in the state of Florida, which was almost 50 stores. And I had all my management team go through a program that was called Service Excellence. Now, again, this is face-to-face, brick and mortar, but it applies in a digital realm as well. And they went through a week's worth of training, all to get to one very simple method, and that was, we called it the HEAT method. What do you need to do? You need to hear what the complaint is. You need to hear what the person is saying firsthand. You need to empathize with them. Different than sympathize. Empathize, you want to try and put yourself in their shoes and walk a mile and see what they see. Then apologize for the situation. Whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's a bad situation. You want to apologize for the situation, and then take some form of positive action. So HEAT: hear, empathize, apologize, and take action. And it's a great tool to keep in your back pocket. We are just about out of time. I want to thank you for coming. Great questions, great interaction, and we got just a few moments, so let me turn it back to everybody. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints?
None from here.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a great week, and good luck on your stalking adventure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.